if it is no longer September 2024, or if it's no longer the 25th for you. Why don't I see anyone here? Might just be a bit slow. Let me try to move in case it's the signal. So yeah, if it's no longer 25th of September for you, you're watching a replay in the next few days or weeks. If you're watching a replay and you're wondering how to join the live, the best way is to subscribe and hit the little bell, notification bell, so you won't miss. Oh, perfect. Good. Welcome, Tish. Nice to have you do a sound check and a visual check. It's funny because it used to take about 30 seconds until I see you, and in the last few lives it's taken a bit longer. So it's good to know. No need to get worried quite yet. And if that's the case, I might even sit down again. I thought the signal was not great, but we still have 10 minutes to go. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. So do let us know in the chat where you're tuning from. We'll be starting in exactly 10 minutes. So if any of you wanted to skip the hellos, if you want to go straight into the tour, you can skip the next 10 minutes. If you're watching a replay, of course. If you are live with us, well, you have to stick with us. Thank you, Pisas. I've been told on the street by somebody from Spain that it was a Basque beret. I don't think it's a Basque beret. I think it's we had those hats everywhere, you know. You see them in Peaky Blinders and stuff, so I don't think they were only in the Basque country. I think they were definitely in the UK as well. So we've got, let me move. Signal is not great for some reason here. I've just made a move. So there was indeed something wrong with my bench. It should be better now. So for any of you that are new to me, we could have a few signal drops at any point. And if any of you are watching the replay in the next few weeks or so, if suddenly I say something that doesn't make any sense at all, it's probably because you had a little cut in the signal. Because sometimes when that happens, you can miss a few words or a full sentence, and suddenly it doesn't make any sense anymore. But hopefully we'll be good. I have done a live tour in Brixton before. That was 3 years ago though. So the signal might have changed, but hopefully we'll be good. Hi Nikki, hi Dawn, hi Natalie. Nice to see you all here, and welcome everyone else that I did not greet. So we've got about 9 minutes to go, I think. Let me see. 8 minutes to go, to be precise. Probably sat on a ghost. Yes, exactly. Yes. And salut Mike. Nice to see you here. Well, actually, you know what? That bench, there was a name on it, you know, a little plaque. So it could be their ghost. Who knows? There's a great way of getting out if it starts making no sense. Well, to be honest, most of the time when there's a real cut, when you are live, you know, you can, obviously you miss a few seconds, but after the live, what YouTube does is they stick everything together. So you don't have the time lapse anymore. But to be honest, usually you see it with the visual, because the visual would move as well. Unless I'm really like pointing out towards a building and not moving, but that's actually rare. Especially not today, because we've got quite a walk to do. So we don't want to be stopping at one point for too long. You just had a bad connection. Let me give you a glimpse of the view in case you get... Oh! I don't know why it said find a face, like if I had a filter on. I don't have any filter. Well, if my skin looked better than usual, maybe there's a filter on that I don't know about, but I didn't click on any filters. But remember, I had a little bug last time, so we never know, there might be some filters still on. If suddenly I get the cookie face again, let me know. I don't want to move too much down this way because that's the ghostly bench that takes my signal away. So don't, let's not get too close. So we are in a very residential area, as you can see. And it is nearly 6 p.m, so we'll have a bit of sunset somehow, somewhere. Well, if it's not too cloudy, but I've seen a bit of sun. The forecast was absolutely dreadful for today, so I'm so glad it's better. Even if we do get a bit wet at the end, we always have a good start for now, so I'm happy. That building in the corner looks like it might have been a pub at some point. Not anymore. We're losing a lot of our local pubs, as you might know. We spoke about that in some of my tours in the past. Okay, let me check how long we've got. 4 minutes to go, 4 minutes, and welcome Mitzi. If any of you were completely new to me, say hello in the chat, let us know where you're from. It's always great to see some newcomers. Don't be shy, we have a great little community here. I'm sure everyone would love to meet you, or virtually meet you. Oops. So we've got a few minutes to go. And of course, feel free to use the chat at any point through the tour. Don't worry too much about distracting me. It's my job to know if I want to stop and acknowledge what you say. Sometimes, even if I do have time to read it, because there can be a bit of a delay, so sometimes even if you say something fairly interesting, if I think I've moved on and we're already on something else, because sometimes I get it like 30 seconds after you do, I might not react to it, but it's fine, you know. And actually it's nice to have the chat active at all time, because if you don't say anything for a minute or two, I might get a bit worried and I might be like, oh, did I lose the signal? Are they still there? Do we have a tech issue? So it's always great to have the chat very active at any point. Let me see what time it is. 3 minutes to go, 3 minutes. Let me show you a little monument. I don't even remember how to do that. I never use filters. Why does it say find a... Oh yes, I'm on cute. I did well, let's remove it, let's see. I'm not gonna be as cute anymore, hold on. Let me show you, you tell me if you see a difference. Am I less cute now? I didn't realize I was on cute filter, so I've removed it now. So if I'm suddenly very ugly, that's because the filter is off. Anyway, I was going to show you the monument. Irony. So this is a monument for the Trade Center family. They were apparently the gardeners and plant collectors from King Charles I. They had a garden around here, apparently. And blurry hair, just still beautiful, thank you. More pixelated, that's probably just the signal. It shouldn't influence the pixelation, hopefully not. So yeah, Charles I, that's the one that was a little bit shortened on Whitehall, you know. He was beheaded. Anyway, you know what? If you have a bit of pixelation, let's move, because I was just there for the bench. We are actually starting a little bit further down. Sorry, thank you. There we go. Hopefully that'll be better here. Let me flip this camera around again. So 1 minute, we've got 1 minute to go. So it is nearly 6 p.m. in London. No, I think I look better on cute actually. It's probably just the light that has changed. Oh yeah, Dawn, I've noticed with this particular app, Prism, it takes a little while when you swap cameras. It wasn't the same on Streamlabs, but we've got better options on Prism anyway. So maybe I should try not to move it too much from one side to the next anyway. You don't need to see my face anyway, not through the tour at least. Thank you, Natalie. Right, let's see. It is officially time to start. So welcome everyone, welcome to Brixton. It is 6 p.m. UK time, and without further ado, let's go. If any of you were completely new to me, I'm Natalie, you're very welcome. I hope I'll get you hooked and you'll subscribe for more. Right, let's go. So this little purple door here, I'm not gonna be too loud, I don't want them to hear. If they don't know they live in a murder location, it's probably best. It was sadly the site of a murder mystery in the 60s. I think it's 1966. There used to be, do I have any vacations coming up? Oh yes, I do. I'm going to Turkey in November. I'm taking you with me, of course. And I'm going to India for Christmas. I'll be doing a few lives, of course. And I might go somewhere else in the winter, we'll see. Anyway, so yeah, the purple door. In the 60s, there used to be a grandmother with her husband living in there with their granddaughter, a teenage girl. Her name was Susan Lees. She was 14 years old. And the grandmother, Agnes, I think she was in her 70s. Her husband had just been taken into hospital, so she'd been to visit him. And then she had not been seen again by the neighbors, at least, until she, since she got back from the hospital from visiting her husband. And one afternoon, one of the neighbors, the lady living across the street, she was coming back with her boy from school, when she heard little Susan shouting and screaming, running out of the property. So the neighbor, she could actually see the inside, because the little Susan had left the door open, and she could see the body. The poor body of Agnes Joan was on the floor. She had been brutally attacked. The police was called very quickly. They very quickly imagined Susan came home from the hospital, and she must have surprised a burglar that was in the property, and he must have had attacked her after that. There was no evidence of that, but the little Susan, so the teenager, the granddaughter, she said there were three of them. There was a guy called Ian Rowe. He was a bit of a hippie, probably a guitarist, like a local busker. There was a blonde girl called Jen. And there was a guy called Plunk. Plunk was very ugly, foreign looking, she said. So there was quite a lot of information. So the police decided to look for the trio. They knew all the local vagabonds and all the local gangs and the local buskers. And the local community was very cooperative. You know, they helped 3 characters. Because really, there were no traces of them around Brixton. And if she did, why would that be? You know, did she make them up because she did the crime herself, or maybe with an accomplice? You know, that was the question, really. If you look at this little building that also used to be a pub, see the sign that says the Phoenix? So today it's that's why we have so many struggling pubs closing, because if you have a struggling pub, you know, with the price of accommodation these days, you might as well, you know, close it, refurbish, do a few flats inside, and you'll get more from the rents, really. This block on the right inside, it looks like it's gonna be destroyed. Don't know yet. It's there are still a few flats, but some of them have been evicted already, it looks like. Anyway, back to Susan. She's 14 years old, you know, so they didn't say much about her in the press at the time, because they always try to protect the juveniles, you know. And she was put in the juvenile correction center. She went for trial. They did try to get her down for the murder, but really they didn't have any evidence of that either. She did admit that she lied about the 3 characters, that she invented them, so she was gonna go for perverting the course of justice anyway. But they couldn't prove it was her, and people might have had an accomplice. She didn't know, well, they didn't know whether she'd have the physical strength to kill her grandmother herself. So we'll never know. The murder is still unsolved. Now let me turn around to show you an amazing piece of street art. It is from an artist called Sebas Velasco. He's from Burgos, originally in Spain. So that's lovely. I mean, I don't know if you can see you get a scale of the size really, but it's huge. Sebas is very much inspired by people he meets, so he likes to meet the locals and take photos of random people on the streets, and then he gets inspired from that. So he probably, the boy probably exists. He might have photographed the boy somewhere around Brixton, and that's now a lovely piece of art. Is it buffering? Is it buffering for anybody else? Let me know in the chat. This way I know if it's me or if it's only on your side, Laurie. There's another little mural here on this side. I like it as well because there's a squirrel there. It looks like photorealism. Oh, it buffers now and then. Oh well, hopefully we'll be better off on the main road. Finger crossed. Right, so let's move on. I'm gonna try to go straight down to the main road. Hopefully it might be a bit better. As long as it's not too bad, we should be good. Now there's another murder house just there on my left. I'll show you. It is, I think it's also in the 60s, 63 I think that one was. There was a gentleman that lived here. He was 82 years old. His name was Frederick William Rundle. Rundle had an interesting career. He was a trapeze artist working for the circus. And as he retired, as he grew a bit older, he bought a home to open a lodging house. It's that very building here, number 114. I'm going to try not to stay too long here because if they don't know that they live in a potential murder home, they don't need to know. So yeah, he lived in there with his wife and his dog, Snoozy, and a few lodgers. So you know the lodging houses at the time, you could rent the room for a few weeks or for a few months or long term. And a lot of lodgers would come in and out. A bit like today, really. You know, most of those accommodations today, they're still flat shares. So you still have a big turnover of people moving in and out. And you know, people rent a room and you'll share the kitchen and all the facilities. Well, it was pretty much the same at the time in a lodging house. And at the age of 82, Randall died. You know, nothing weird about it. He was 82. 2 months later, his dog Snoozy also died. They didn't know what the dog had died of, but you know, it happens. The dogs die sometimes. And 2 years later, there's a chap that was arrested for a completely different crime. His name was Barber, James William Barber. He was caught because of assault on a little girl. When I say assault, you can imagine there are a few terms you're not really meant to say on YouTube, but you can imagine one of the worst crimes you can do to a little girl. So he was guilty of that, no questions. And as he's being interrogated by the police, he came up with a very random, or very surprising confession. He told the police that 2 years earlier, he had lived at number 114 Clapham Road with a gentleman called Randall and his wife, and he had murdered the guy, poisoned with barbiturates. And 2 months later, he said, it killed the dog, just for fun, he said. Now, at first, the police was a bit like, what? You know, they kind of doubted this confession, you know, because it really came out of nowhere. But they knew Barber was a nasty piece of work, and he was definitely capable of horrible crimes. So they had to investigate. They came to meet the widow. She did say that she had indeed lost her husband a couple of years earlier. And the dog also died, yes. She didn't see anything suspicious with it at the time, but she said, you know, yeah, maybe. And as the police started to investigate, they fairly quickly realized that after her husband had died, Barber was actually sleeping in the same bedroom as the widow. So they were like, yeah, we've got a motive. It's probably because he wanted the girl, right? Little pause in our story. You see, when you see those shoes on the electric cables, according to some, it is gang related. They say, well, there's a few explanations, but they say that it's often when a gang member is lost that they do that with shoes. I don't know if it's always the case, but it could definitely be the case around here, because there are a few gangs, sadly, in Brixton with some kids, and sadly a few stabbings as well. Anyway, back to Barber. The police had no other option. They had to exhume the bodies. Randall, the 82 years old, and the dog. Both of the bodies contain barbituric. But by the time that was done, though, Randall, probably on the advice of his legal team, he said no. He said he was completely confused at the police station, and he had confessed of a random crime because he realized he was in big trouble with the other crime, but he had made it up. He had never poisoned the guy. Yeah, he gave him a few painkillers. Yes, he did that, but never did he put 20 in his cocoa. No. But the police didn't actually have any proofs. The quantities being found in the body were actually quite confusing. They couldn't prove that it was definitely not a normal dose. So he was actually not found guilty of that one. Well, he was in prison anyway. He was jailed for 10 years for the other crime, the little girl. And you know, people that do stuff to little girls, they don't have a good time in prison, I can tell you. So he was He was punished anyway, but never for Randall. But you know, if indeed he was innocent, why did they find barbiturates in the dog's body? I mean, you know, he could have given a few pills to Randall, but the dog, you know. So we'll never know, but he does look fairly guilty to me. And you know, there are a lot of guilty people out there. There's just no evidence. So you know, you need evidence to charge people and to judge them. Hi Kurt, welcome everyone that just joined. And we're now coming down towards Brixton Road. So I'll tell you about another murder mystery down here. It's quite a large road. Well, the road behind us, Clapham Road, I think that was in Roman Road as well. And Brixton Road is quite a long, busy road too. Now, Brixton doesn't have the best reputation. And personally, I love it. I live very locally. I live 10 minutes away. And I'm still alive, so clearly it's not that bad. The reputation mainly comes from what happened in the 80s. I'll tell you about that in a moment. But today, really, it's fairly safe. Anyway, let me show you the Tesco. The Tesco Express here used to be a pub, the Russell pub. It's another lost pub. Let me show you a picture of what it looked like at the time. So that would have been the pub a little while back. Now I'm gonna have to be careful when I remove the picture, because remember, we don't want the bug. There we go. And all good, perfect. So there was a young man that worked at the pub, at the Russell pub. His name was Tom Jones. He had a girlfriend. Her name was Gertrude, but she was known as Cockeyed Maisy. She was a local prostitute. She was doing quite well, you know, for a sex worker. She had a few boyfriends in the past. Before to be with Tom, she was with a guy called Charlie, a black sailor. He was in the Navy. Probably very charming guy, because Charlie was then stolen by another prostitute. So then she ended up with Tom, and then by the time of her murder, she was single. She still worked as a prostitute. She was 47 by then. But although she was losing her looks, you know, she was known as Cockeyed Maisy, she still had a lot of customers. Some of the neighbors actually were impressed, because they were aware of her profession, and they were seeing so many soldiers coming through. They were actually impressed by how many regulars she had. So to give you an idea, we are in the 40s. 45 to be precise. So she was doing quite well. She had an apartment, 4 bedrooms, and she had every morning milk delivery and a newspaper delivery, as well as a cleaner. She lived in that building here. I don't know which apartment, but one in that building. Hi Matthew, nice to see you here. And one morning, 1945, the newspaper man, she didn't open the door to him, and the milk guy, the milk guy neither. Although I don't know if the milk guy had to come in, you know, they usually drop it by the door, but she didn't open anyway. And later on, the cleaning lady came. She had the key, the cleaning lady. So she got in, and she was shocked to find that Maisy had been brutally attacked. Is this happening? I'm just waiting until it says the signal is better. It looks like I've lost you, so I'm just gonna wait. It will come back, hopefully. I don't understand how I can have no signal in such a quiet street. Yeah, welcome to London. Some people can do live streaming in Peru or in the middle of the desert. And in London, we've got some signal drops like here. You still here? Can you hear me? It's telling me transmission. Okay. Weird. Okay, well, I'll keep going then. Right. That's going to be weird because then I'm never going to know when you're here or not if there's a bug. Okay, right, we're back. So I was saying by the way, this beautiful street, it's absolutely stunning, but it's a Peabody building. So most of it must be social housing still today. It's interesting. Anyway, so she... the cleaning lady came inside. She found the body. Poor Maisy had been attacked with a shillelagh. The police didn't really know where to start. Sex workers are always far more exposed than any other profession, really, due to the nature of the job, sadly. They went to see the former boyfriends, Charlie. He was very much innocent, he was in the Navy, he was not even in London at that point. They went to see Tom Jones, the guy that worked at the pub. He was very much innocent as well. Tish with a shillelagh, those Irish shillelagh, like a stick. The shillelagh belonged to her. It was in the home. And so the police, when they looked at the body, she had sexual intercourse, for sure. She also suffered from gonorrhea and syphilis. See, this is a Peabody. And they found chemical evidence that a pro kit had been used. Now, when I read that, I had to Google it. I didn't know what a pro kit was. I'll show you a picture of a pro kit. Oops. There you go. So that's an American pro kit, basically condoms. Apparently, the US Army was giving that to the soldiers. I'm not too sure what the little lob is meant to do. It's probably an antibacterial something. So they knew, at least her last customer, it doesn't mean that it's definitely the person that killed her, but they knew the last customer probably was an American soldier, or not. Maybe did she keep the kit from one of the soldiers to have sex with somebody else? It's not evidence of anything really. But that was it. A lady came out saying she was her sister, but she didn't know anything. The neighbor said she had a lot of customers. They gave physical descriptions of most of those soldiers, but none of them could be really identified and found guilty. So it's still very much a murder mystery today. We'll probably never know what really happened to Cockeyed Maisy. She had some regulars, and she also had a patch on St. Martin's Lane where she'd pick up one night customers. So, did something happen? Did she maybe mock one of them because of his performance or whatever? Or did he go crazy? Did the customer get a bit disappointed by the state of her sexual diseases? We don't know. We'll never know. Anyway, now we are on Brixton Road, which is very long and very boring. So let me tell you a shocking story. Most of you from Britain will know the most shocking crime that happened in Brixton in the last few years. But from the other side of the pond, you might not know the story. It's not here. It's a bit further down on Brixton Hill. It's a road that's very much the same size as this one, though. On the South Circular Road, at King Street, there's a girl that went missing in March 2021. Now, March 2021, that was through what we called the third lockdown. So we still had a lot of COVID restrictions. We were not meant to be out going to see friends at night. You were allowed to have a small bubble. So if you lived on your own and didn't have a family to hang around with, you were allowed to have a small, what they call the bubble. But technically, we still had restrictions. So if you went to see a friend, you tried to cycle or walk, you wouldn't necessarily take the public transport because technically it was illegal. Although, to be honest, the lockdowns were not respected in London, especially the third one. I mean, I remember March 2021, I remember being in Hyde Park with hundreds of people who were drinking beer, big groups of like 25 drinking beer. The police was there. They wouldn't confront anyone, you know, because by then no one really respected the lockdowns. But technically, there were still restrictions. And that's going to be important for the rest of the story. Some of you might already know exactly who I'm talking about, Sarah Everard. Sarah was, I think she was 33 years old. She was from York originally. She'd lived in London for a few years, 2008 I think, same as me. And I think she worked in accounting. She had a boyfriend, but they didn't live together quite yet. And that night, she went for dinner at a friend's place in Clapham Junction, between Clapham Junction and Clapham South. So about a 15-minute walk from here. She was seen on CCTV. She stopped at the shop, Sainsbury's, to buy a bottle of wine to bring to our friends. She went for dinner. She left about 9. She was not seen again. The next day, she didn't go to work. Her boyfriend declared her missing the next day at 8 p.m. The police very quickly took it very seriously. She wasn't the type of character that would leave her friends and family without any news. And she, her phone was off straight away from that very moment. That next day she was not seen. The police started searching very, very soon after. And they did an amazing work. I mean, very, very quickly, they started to check all the CCTVs in the area. They found traces of Sarah leaving her friend's place on foot. And again, she couldn't really take a bus anyway because you were not really meant to. Technically, it was still lockdown. And they saw her on CCTV. She had already gone through Clapham Park. She was on the South Circular Road. So it's a road like this one with 4 lanes and very, very well lit. I have one of my closest friends living on that road, so I found myself in the evening there very often. Never, ever did I imagine anything could happen to me, you know. It's such a well-lit road with a lot of traffic. And anyway, after that, they couldn't locate her. They went and checked all the CCTV cameras of every single bus that went up that road when they found one. On one bus CCTV camera, so it's quite blurred because the bus, of course, is moving. But they saw a Vauxhall Astra with the warning lights on that had pulled over the side with a gentleman talking to Sarah. At that point, the police is still hoping that it might be a friend. Maybe she ran into a friend, she got into their car, and for some reason, she stayed with him for 3 days. They could see the plate, the number plate. They looked into that. They found the name, Wayne Cousin. Wayne Cousins was he was from Kent. He lived in Deal. It's close to Dover. The car had been rented. It was a hire car, but he had given his information when he rented it. It had been given back to the rental since. And when the police looked, they dug into his details. They were shocked because they discovered it was one of their own. He was a serving Met police officer. And not any police officer, a gunned, trained police officer, one of the guys that protect the embassies. He was actually protecting the US embassy in Vauxhall. Oh no, it's starting to rain now. And so they went straight down to Deal in Kent to interview him. No solicitor present. There was an emergency interview. We've got videos of that online. He very quickly confessed, he's from the police himself. He knows exactly how it works. He knows if they came to him, they've got information. So he quickly confessed that he had indeed abducted Sarah. But he made up a full-length story that there was a gang in Maidstone. He was short in cash. He had been asked if he could kidnap a girl to bring her to them. That's what he did. He didn't know who they were, didn't know their name, didn't know what they looked like, didn't know where they lived, didn't know anything. Of course, the police knew that it was very probably a big fat lie, but they had nothing else to work on. So they had to investigate anyway. Of course, they couldn't find any traces of that gang, and now they knew that he had abducted her, but the question was, did he use his police card? Did he pretend that she was doing an infraction, or she was in the wrong because she was out through the COVID lockdowns, right? So did he pretend to arrest her, to use her trust in the police, which it's even worse as a crime, right? And then they found evidence that he had bought some police handcuffs a day earlier. And there's a witness actually. Oh my God, I would not want to have been that witness. She told the police that she was driving past with her husband when she noticed a girl being arrested and handcuffed. And she told the husband, oh, it's really rare that you see ladies being handcuffed by undercover police officers. Little did she know, if she had followed her instincts, because it is very odd indeed, but little did she know that she was witnessing an abduction. And at that point, the police still doesn't really know if there's really a gang. They found evidence that he had transferred Sarah to his own car, and then they found a piece of land around Maidstone, a piece of forest that belonged to Cousin's family. So that's where they investigated. Tish, apparently so, yes. I don't know whether they asked for his police card, but yeah, apparently so. And a lot of people want them for kinky stuff, but they would be fake. Apparently he bought some real ones. But yeah. Anyway, he eventually in that piece of woodland, they eventually found the body. After disposing of her, he had stopped at Costa to buy a hot chocolate with his credit card. I don't know why criminals buy coffees with their credit cards. Why don't they go to cash? You'd have to be very stupid. They've got CCTV of him going to Costa, buying a coffee, hot chocolate, and they have a phone call. This is mad. He tried to burn the body, and they have a phone call. It's recorded. He called his vet at the very moment when they believe he was burning the body in the woods. So he called his vet to take an appointment for his dog. He was a family man. He had a wife and kids. He had told them he was working that night, so they didn't really question anything. But of course, that was huge, and that was absolutely terrible for the police and their reputation. because you can only police with trust, well, obviously there might be a few rotten apples in the police as well, and of course you have 68% of men in the Met, and some men are misogynist, so you'd always have a few rotten apples, but that was quite bad, really. And we were still through COVID restrictions, so they wanted to organize a little vigil and a little memorial in Clapham Common, where she went on her way home, which they did. The afternoon was fairly quiet. The Princess of Wales, Catherine, she was not the Princess of Wales yet, but Kate Middleton went to drop some flowers. The afternoon was quiet, but some protesters wanted to have a vigil at night on speakers and all that. And of course, we were still through the social distancing and COVID restrictions that had not been allowed. And some of my I didn't want to go because I knew it was going to finish in a riot, really. Some of my flatmates went, but I didn't want to take part into that, because I don't think it's fair to blame the police in general. We need policing. Anyway, they were actually provoking the police in Clapham Common, to be honest. So eventually the police had to intervene, and some of those images were quite shocking as well, because they kind of grabbed the girl and she purposely stayed on the floor for the pictures to be very shocking and all that. So that was a terrible moment for the Met. The Met commissioner, Cressida Dick, she had to step down eventually, and then there were a lot more investigation into Wayne, and more police officers. They found a WhatsApp chat. So the police watchdog, they found a WhatsApp chat with Wayne and some of the colleagues from the Ministry of Defence Police. That WhatsApp chat was extremely misogynistic, and it turned up that Wayne had some past as indecent exposures. 3 days earlier, he had driven into a drive-through at McDonald's in Kent with his erected penis exposed. McDonald's did tell the police at the time. They didn't do anything, or at least not on time. And he had been accused of indecent exposures many times in the few years before that. So how did he first manage to join the police at the first place? It's all very questionable, really. So that was terrible for the Met, and then they had to publish an official message that if you were a lady alone and you were arrested by a single police officer, you can ask to grab their radio and speak to the control room and all that. So it's themselves admitting that we shouldn't trust the police. So it went all sadly very crazy. But it is crazy that a guy like that could have joined the police at the first place. He's jailed for life, which is actually rare for a single murder. So that's good. He shouldn't get a parole. We shouldn't see him on the streets of London ever again. But yeah. Anyway, this is the skate park. And let's go and see a place, a very residential area, where a little boy that you might have heard of was born. His name was David Jones at the time, I think. So it's very residential around here. It's still let me cross when I can. Now it's still quite expensive today because we are very central. With the Victoria line, you can be in central London very quickly. So do you know what little boy I'm talking about? David? Kurt, I'm sure you know. Let me know in the chat if you know what little boy. He doesn't have a blue plaque here. He's got a blue plaque in exactly Mike. David Bowie was born on this street here on Stanfield Road. He doesn't have a plaque here. He's got a plaque in just off Regent Street somewhere where they filmed the cover of I think it was Ziggy Stardust, but here he doesn't have a plaque yet. Yes, exactly, Bowie. Nice to have you along, Penny. It's been ages. Welcome back. I love those little homes. Well, today, you know, if you see the, this one has quite a few, there's quite a few bells, so it looks like a nice little home, but actually you very often have 4 or 5 apartments inside. Oh, you see when you stick those little stickers on the door saying no junk mail, well, there's absolutely no purpose in doing so. If you don't want to have any advertising or any flyers in your letterbox, don't put a no junk mail. People, legally, no junk mail doesn't mean anything because it's very subjective. Who decides what is junk, what is not? Maybe I'm giving you a discount for McDonald's and I think it's amazing. So if you want to make sure no one puts anything in your letterbox, you have to stick no advertising, no flyers, addressed mail only. Because junk, there's no definition of junk. So anyone is technically allowed to drop anything in there anyway. Exactly, Tish. I used to, through the first COVID lockdown when I didn't have any tours anymore, I did a few jobs as dropping flyers in mailboxes. This is the one, this is number 40. So that's where I was born. So yeah, I did a few jobs putting those flyers in mailboxes, and the client would tell you if they wanted it in the junk mails or not. So that was part of the brief. Junk mail, yes. Conceal flats, yes or not, depending on the client. But most of the time, they wanted it to be put with no junk mail anyway. But if it said no advertising, no flyers, then you wouldn't put it. Bills are junk mail to me, exactly. Exactly. So David Bowie was born here, but I think he moved to Bromley at the age of 6. So Brixton is really proud of its Brixton boy, but really he's more of a Bromley boy. He had, a lot of people think he's got 2 different eye color. He doesn't. He had, when he was in Bromley at school, he got into a fight. And that was quite bad. He was hospitalized for, I think, about 4 months. And one of the consequences was that one of his eye pupil was stuck fully dilated. So his eyes are actually the same color, but one is like big black in the middle, and the other one is like a normal pupil. So that's why he looks a bit out of space. He had a lot of mental health issues in his family as well. I think his half brother suffered from schizophrenia, and an aunt as well. So he had a lot of experience with insanity as well. And later on, he also had a lot of experience with drugs. He became a bit addicted to cocaine at some point. And we'll go and see. He's got a little mural over here in Brixton that is well protected behind plastic. The mural was actually painted when he was still alive. It is a technique. Some artists, they try to paint a mural of somebody while they're still alive, but when you kind of know they're gonna die soon. We've seen that with what's his name, the charity scam, Captain John, what's his name, Captain Moore? Captain, well, you know who I mean, the Captain John Moore? The older gentleman that was doing charity through COVID for the NHS. Now his family is going into, well, they've been accused of being a scam. Anyway, you probably know who I mean. If you don't, it doesn't matter. Anyway, let's go down towards the part of Brixton. Oh, Captain Ton, perfect. Mike, thank you. Yeah, Tom Moore, I think. Yeah. So yes, someone had painted a huge portrait of him, and he died a few days or weeks later. So that street artist became well known. So it's a technique for street artists to become known. It's to paint a huge portrait of someone that might die fairly soon after. Thank you, Sarah. So yeah, Brixton today, it still has a bad reputation, but mainly because of what happened in the 80s. So that's the Brixton riots. There was at the time a lot of unfairness, in the behavior of the police. A lot of young black men would be arrested for absolutely no reason. They'll be stopped and searched and sometimes even beaten up. And a lot of people had witnessed that around here. The general public might have not been aware at the time, but after the riots, journalists came around here and they interviewed a lot of people. And one person can lie, one person can exaggerate, 10 people can lie, 20 people can exaggerate. But when everyone tells you that the police behavior was unacceptable, after a while you realize it's true. So a lot of men would be searched for nothing, and well, some argue that that's still the case today. Eventually they had the last drop. The first riots were in 81. It started with a stabbing that was in a pool, in a bar where they played pool. Two young men had a fight. One stabbed another. The man that had been stabbed run off on the streets, and the police stopped him. The police had actually already radioed the emergency services, the ambulances, but the local community didn't realize they did so, and they took him into a van to take care of him. But the locals believed that they were actually attacking him and trying to arrest him when he was clearly in need of help. So that sparked the first night of riots, and then a few weeks later there was another one, a taxi driver that was arrested for nothing as well. And then that was a night of crazy attacks against the police. They were throwing bricks and rocks, and a lot of police officers were injured. I think 300 of them. Hi Gerard, I've missed the message, sorry. Let me turn around to show you this letterbox. This is very modern. It's not quite a king yet, but you see, this is when they have the little thing popping out like this with the cipher. The new King Charles III one sorry, I've missed a lot of things in the chat. Apologies. The new King Charles III here in Cambridge, they have the same square. So that's a fairly modern one, probably one of the last decade of Queen Elizabeth II. It looks actually quite cheap compared to the good old Victorian ones. Maybe made in China. I don't know for sure, but it definitely doesn't look the same quality as the good old foundries we used to have. Anyway, so this is the site of the Bon Marché. One of our first department stores, well, after Fort Newman Mason and Harrods, really. It was huge, and On the other side here, that was called Topland House. That was built for the staff of the Bon Marché. They had 100 apartments for their staff, with 2 canteens, one for men, one for ladies, and with 2 tunnels as well to go into the shop. So they could go straight from their apartments into the Bon Marché. The Bon Marché was huge. The guy that opened it, he was, I think his name was John Smith of Tooting. He had made a lot of money after winning at the horse racing, and he decided to open an amazing shop. So that was huge, and they had a locomotive inside. They even had a 1-hour delivery system, so you could place an order and they'll send it in less than an hour. He might have been an ancestor of Jeff Bezos or something. Sadly, he went bankrupt. Yes, Mike, but it's not something, it's a bit old. I would never say Bon Marché myself. To say cheap, nowadays we say not expensive, pas cher. Bon Marché, maybe my grandmother would say that. It's like old French, really. And today we'll just say not expensive. Anyway, today it's actually, so you've got shops at on the ground level, like TK Maxx and stuff, and above it's they actually have offices to rent. Yeah, it's going dark fairly early these days. Yeah. Now the Bon Marché, the guy went bankrupt, but the shop survived. Eventually, the business was absorbed by Selfridges. I should have crossed there maybe. No, never mind, let's cross here. So you can probably already see a little bit of Electric Avenue at the back. Yeah, exactly. That was basically inspired from the Parisian one. Well, Brixton was very much inspired by Paris at the time. It probably doesn't look like it today, but Electric Avenue was known as Little Paris sometime, especially with their Christmas lights. The district at the time was very much of a shopping center, really. Okay, there's no light. Let's go. So today, Brixton is known to be a very Caribbean and Afro-Caribbean area. In Victorian times, it was not the case yet. Really, Vauxhall Bridge was built in, I think, 1816. So that's when it started to develop a bit more around here, residentially. And then you had the trains coming in, I think it's 1862. So that's really what kicked off the developing of Brixton. And they had this famous Electric Avenue opened in 1888. That was the first electricity fully led street in London. The very first one in the UK, I think it's Newcastle, but in London, it's here in Brixton, Electric Avenue. So big contrast with the dark streets of Whitechapel, for example, where in 1888, you guys know what happened there in 1888. Those poor ladies brutally attacked. Well, here in Brixton, you had electricity and brightness, and it was. Thanks ever so much, Diane. It was quite amazing. Although Electric Avenue was not a success, very straight away. It was a bit too expensive at first. So the first shops actually opened a bit later. Anyway, let's go up to the platform. We're going on a train. No, just kidding. We're not going on a train, but I want to show you the train platform because why not? If you hear me huffing and puffing, it's because of the stairs. I'm going up because I want to show you the statues. We've got a new one. Some of you might have been here with me a couple of 3 years ago now, but we've got a new statue. So they were the first statues of black people anywhere in the UK. They had 3 until a couple of years ago now. Now we've got 4. So we've got Joy, Karim and Peter. This one here is Peter Lloyd. I think he worked at the Brixton Rex as well, the Brixton Recreation Centre. So they were real people, normal people of Brixton that were modeling for the artist. So this is Karim on the other side there. Let me show you. Originally they were on the same line, so that was the 3 of them in 80, I think it's 87 or 86, 86 I think it was, when they first appeared. So at the time it was very unusual. And I'll show you Joy. She's on the other side. So the artist is Kevin Atherton. He's still alive because just a couple of years ago he's done a new one of Joy. So now you've got Joy 1 and Joy 2. Will I be taking you around the Camden Market and the canal again? Yes, I will. I don't know when. I'll probably wait a few months until you forget about it, because I try not to redo those tours too soon after on YouTube, because at the time of Hego, we had a lot of new people all the time. On YouTube, I don't have that many, so I usually wait a few months before to redo a tour. But yeah, I'll be going back there at some point. Let me show you Electric Avenue from here, and then we'll go down to take a look. So this is Electric Avenue. They have a market. The market is closing by now. That's why I chose that timing, because when the market is busy, you don't want to... here comes the train. So those trains would go towards me, Denmark Hill. Well, actually, I'm closer to here than Denmark Hill. They could go all the way to Bromley, so you could go and see, I guess you could go and see Gerard with those trains. And some people love those statues, even though they never actually get off in Brixton. Every day on the train, they see those statues of Joy number 1, number 2, and Peter and Karim. So that's quite cool. So let me show you Joy number 1. So she worked as at the Brixton Rex as well, so normal local lady. She had just been recovering from cancer actually when they did the statue. So there is Joy number 1. So that one is from 1886. So lovely work. And I'll wait until the train goes, because Joy number 2 is on the other side. Joy number 2, she has been done with 3D scans. So she had to pose with all those cameras and stuff all around her. Let me zoom in a bit. There she is. So it's the same lady about 40, nearly 40 years later, 36 years later. And so that one is very realistic, because it's literally a 3D print of Joy. Cool. Let's go down. Let's go and see Electric Avenue. Now I'm not gonna be able to play Eddie Grant because copyright. And I'm not the best singer, so that's all that you get. All that you get. Electric Avenue, that's all I can think. The song was actually produced by reggae artist Eddie Grant as a response to the riots. So the 1881 riots, no one died. So that was lucky. But many, I think it's 45 protesters that were injured, white and black, and 300 police officers. A lot of buildings were burned and destroyed. A lot of the protesters had broken shops. They had stolen suits and bottles of champagne and jewelry and that very night, after the protest finished, they actually had a party on Brixton Hill, because for them it was a success. You know, everyone in the world knew that the London police had lost control of their streets. You know, they've lost control. At the beginning, the police officers were not even prepared at all. You know, when they started throwing bricks, some of those police constables had to grab the lid of a dustbin to protect themselves like a shield, you know. So that was very violent, very, very violent. And in '85, what created the unrest again, there was a huge mistake from the police. They wanted to arrest a man that was allegedly involved into a burglary. They went to his mum's. They were convinced that he was hiding there, and they actually shot his mum. It was an accident. I mean, of course, they didn't want to kill the mother, but you can imagine that the riot started again. And so this is Electric Avenue. In Victorian times, you had those large canopies. So if I stood where I am now, I'd be sheltered by a canopy. They had been quite badly destroyed by the bombs, you know, through the Second World War, and they've not been reinstalled ever since. Now, if you look on top of the building there, you might see some cherries and a few foxes on top of the building straight ahead. I hope you didn't hear what the lady said. Anyway, so the cherries, it's called Cherries and Foxes. And, well, I like it because I like my foxes. The artist, she's from the Camberwell Art School. I think it's 2011 that they placed it there. And it is meant to illustrate the London wildlife, you know, those foxes that would come on the scavenge some of the food from the markets. It did cost about £28,000 to Lambeth Council, and I went online and read the positive and negative comments that came to criticize the work of art. Some of them are very funny. One of them said, "Oh, great idea! That's great for the dyslexics, for directions."
Okay.
What? I mean, what? I mean, I'm dyslexic and it doesn't really help me much with directions, thank you. But yeah, I love it because I love my foxes. The artist is called Lucy Casson. And this is the end of Electric Avenue. The first business to actually open after the street was finished in 1888, there was actually a pharmacy. And today it's still a Boots. That's quite cool. On the other side, Iceland, that was the site of an attack. That's one of the terms I can't really say on YouTube, but the T word. Very sadly, in '99, there was a neo-Nazi that targeted this area with a nailed bomb. He first dropped it on the street here, but someone moved the bag into Electric Avenue. A lot of people were injured. I think about 50. And some of you might know after that he targeted Soho, the Admiral Duncan, because that's the gay area. So he had targeted Brick Lane, Brixton and Soho. And in Soho, in the pub, the Admiral Duncan, exactly Kurt, David Copeland his name was. The Admiral Duncan, they were I think it's 4 dead and 73 injured. Copeland was caught too late, of course, but yeah. Thank you. The beautifully lit building straight ahead, that's the Lambeth Council. You know who worked in there at some point? John Major, the Prime Minister. If you don't know John Major, it's the Prime Minister that is featured in the last season of the Crown. Well, before Tony Blair, of course. He was a Tory Prime Minister in the 90s, and he was from Brixton. I'm gonna wait because it's a bit noisy. Yeah, so John Major was from Brixton. The Tory government was quite proud of his humble beginning. So that's the one with glasses that you see in The Crown. I mean, there are many actors that are way too sexy for their roles. I mean, I don't think John Major was particularly sexy. Well, neither was Margaret Thatcher. I mean, Gillian Anderson, it's a bit too sexy for her role, if you ask me. But yeah, there's a little story. I'm not sure how much of that is true. But the John Major's dad, he was an artist at the concert hall. He was actually very old. He was a Victorian man, would you believe? And he was called. Apparently, he went under the name Tom Major when he played his. I think he was more of a singer than anyway. But apparently one day there was a little poster here, and it is said that David Bowie might have got inspired seeing the poster of Tom Major, and then he might have created the character Major Tom, you know, one of his famous characters. I'm not sure how much of that is true, but you know, why not? Anyway, this is the Ritzy Cinema. Would you believe at the beginning of the 20th century, we had 9 cinemas in Brixton. And this is, we had a theatre here. This is the foundation stone of the old theatre. And I'm gonna stop here on the stone because I'm gonna rest the gimbal to show you a little something, because I need 2 hands to show you. Let me get it from my bag. Brixton, would you believe, has its own currency. It is known as the Brixton pound. It was created after the crash, you know, the economical crash of 2008. Let me show you. Yes, exactly. John Major got married into the church. I'll show you the church in a moment. You're ahead of me again, Kurt. Well, so this one is the £5 note. So this is 5 Brixton pounds. This one, I mean, I'm pretty sure this one is real because it's got serial number. I got this one from my flatmate, but I found the back very odd for a note. It's very odd, but it's got the serial number, so it must be real. Now let me show you the £10. This is real for sure. I bought it from the issuer. It's the second edition. The first edition, I wish I had the £20 because there's Violet Zabo on it. I like Zabo. So this is the £10. So every business here in Brixton should accept the Brixton pound. They were created to encourage people to spend money locally, you know. Although a lot of businesses don't really take cash anymore. But this is my £10. There we go, with David Bowie. You want to create your own money? Well, that'll be cool. If you create the Tish money, send me a note. Brixton is not the only area. I think they've got one in Lewis as well, the Lewis Pound. Bristol as well, the Bristol Pound. But to be honest, I don't even know anymore. If I stepped into a little cafe here and I tried to pay with that, I'm not too sure the staff would be aware. But in theory, they should take it. Now, let me put that away. Bear with me one sec. I don't want to lose my Brixton pounds, so I've got a secret back pocket in my. It's an anti-pickpocket pocket in my bag, so I don't need to remove my bag to put it in my anti-pickpocket pocket. There we go. I think it's done. There we go. Right. So we are now on Windrush Square, named after the Empire Windrush, the boat. It is a boat that brought a lot of people from Jamaica, nearly 500 people, right after the Second World War. And this is Tate, Henry Tate, because we are in front of the Tate Library. You might know him from the Tate Modern, of course, and the South Bank. Sorry, I nearly crashed into a bench. Well, I'll show you. It's not really a bench. It's a stone that is used as a bench, but I was going backward and I nearly died. So yeah, Tate is known for, well, he made a lot of money with sugar cubes. He did not really invent them. Technically, they had been invented by a Swiss guy in Czechia, but he put down the pattern for the sugar cubes here in the UK, and he made a lot of money with that. So much money that he accumulated a large collection of art. So he actually opened the library here. Here, I think another one in Vauxhall and another one in West Norwood, where he's buried. You might remember we saw his grave at West Norwood Cemetery. And by the way, I know he's, with people making money from sugar, you probably think about slavery. I think he was like 14 years old when slavery was abolished. He dealt with sugar much later on, so officially his money doesn't really have much link to slavery. And yes, Tish, we've got a ghost sign here. I love those old commercials that are still here years and years later. And so the Windrush generation, it is after the war. At the time Jamaica was very much still part of Britain, and a lot of people from Jamaica, they actually fought in the war as well. That's why we have a little monument for them there. And to rebuild Britain after the war, they wanted some labor. So they invited a lot of people from Jamaica to come and work, to rebuild Britain and to work in the transport service. And a lot of people came. And the Empire Windrush was one of those boats. And the Empire Windrush was a boat that was used. It was actually, sadly, a German boat. It used to be, it was actually transporting Jews through the Second World War. It was called Monte Rosa at the time, but it was captured by the Brits, and then they used it to bring people from Jamaica. And that's what we call the Windrush generation. A lot of people, thousands of people coming from Jamaica to rebuild Britain. Sadly, there's also a scandal, really, the Windrush scandal that you might have heard of. To try to explain it, it's all a bit very complicated, but those people coming from Jamaica in the 50s, they came with a British passport, because at the time Jamaica was part of Britain. So for them, they came to the mother nation for work, and a lot of them had kids with them. So they came with their kids on their passport. The families settled here. The kids are now quite old, but some of them never had a passport made. So some of them never had a passport. From the year, well, it's mainly from 2009 to 2018 when really it exploded and Theresa May had to publicly apologize. Suddenly, those people that had been here working, paying taxes for like 50 years, they were accused of being illegal immigrants. Some of them, it's hard to find the actual numbers because the press and the government don't have the exact same number, but some of them were actually deported. I mean, very few, but imagine that after 40 years in the country, living your life, sometimes having a business, having your grandchildren and your children living here, and suddenly being told you are illegal. I think it's a bit crazy to imagine for some of us because like here you don't have to have an ID really. I mean, you can have a driving license, but they could have applied for a passport, but then they would have had to go through, let me cross what I can, through the same process as me. So if I wanted a British passport, I'll have to do the naturalization process, which is about £1,700. For me, I don't see any interest in getting a British passport because it wouldn't bring me anything apart from the right to vote for the general elections. But that's a different story. So yeah, very, very scandalous, really. But government apologized. Right, should I go? Yes, let me cross you. We've done it. Right, and let me show you the church. So this is St. Matthew's Church. It's one of what we call the Waterloo churches. After the Battle of Waterloo, they created some churches, mainly in South London, that like the one in Kennington, West Norwood as well, I think is one of them. So that was for the expanding population. You know, London was expanding quite dramatically at the time, and the basement is used for very secular purposes. It's often a nightclub, and that's where we used to have Torture Garden, one of the biggest fetish nights in Europe, really. So that's quite funny to have Torture Garden in a church. But yeah. Now we are now by the St. Matthew's estate. It didn't used to have a great reputation. It's just a bit further on the left, and lots of steps to get a British passport. Yeah, you've got to. Well, I think for me it would be fairly easy because of the knowledge you have as a tour guide. But if otherwise you have to study because you have to. Not turtles, torture. I would like to go to Turtle's Garden. Anyway, so yeah, for the British passport you have to take a test, knowledge test. You know, they'll ask you very interesting questions like, what type of bird do the Brits eat for Christmas? 1, an ostrich. 2, a swan. 3, a turkey. I think it might be a swan. No, I'm just kidding. I think some of the questions are actually quite a bit more difficult than that. Anyway, no British. I mean, at least no one misunderstood now, because some people don't ask, but they might be confused too. Nico and John Cooper Clarke lived together just across from here in the Effra Road. Kurt, I don't know who they are, but good you mentioned the Effra Road, because I wanted to tell you about the River Effra, and I forgot. The Effra Road is named after the River Effra. That's one of our lost rivers we have in London. And the River Effra was going all the way from Crystal Palace under West Norwood Cemetery down here, then the Oval Cricket Ground. That's why it gets flooded sometimes at the Oval, and then Vauxhall into the Thames. It's now part of the, when they kind of use them for the sewage system in Victorian times. So we don't see much of the Effra. Well, you can see it in Vauxhall. If you stand on Vauxhall Bridge, you can see it coming out. But apparently there's a story with a coffin. There was a coffin that was floating on the River Effra. They, at the time, you know, on the coffins, they used to put a little plaque with the name of the deceased and the name of the cemetery. It was from West Norwood Cemetery. So they contacted the cemetery. The cemetery was very well surprised because the tomb had not been disturbed. And they found out that they had dug a bit too deep in the London clay, and the coffin had dropped into the riverbed. So the coffin was like floating away all the way to the Thames. And anyway, that's nearly the end of the tour, but I have a last little murder mystery for you before we go. Straight up there, I suspect the building has been destroyed, but I'll show you another one that's pretty much exactly the same. There was a family that lived there. Well, a family, a mother and her son. She was the mother was potentially working as a sex worker. We do not know for sure. So we are in the year 1900. Kate, the mother, she had, oh, thanks ever so much, Linda, that's very much appreciated. She was, well, she had been married to a gentleman and he died. You know, in Victorian times, it was so difficult for ladies, widows. You know, the dynamic between men and women was so unfair that it was very difficult to survive after your husband's death. She worked mainly in fabric, you know, sewing items of clothing or whatever. And she then remarried another guy, Arthur. They didn't get along, and she started to think that Arthur might have been interested in her because she was meant to get a big inheritance. And yes, it was the case. It turned up that he was very mean to her. He was treating her very badly, but that was too late. They were married. And when she had her aunt that died, she received a bit of money. He took control of all the money. But, you know, at the time, you know, when you were married, your husband could do anything with your money, you know. He spent all her money. And then once the money ran out, I'm not sure why we're talking about pears in the chat. I've missed a bit. I think I've missed a few jokes in the chat tonight. So yeah, as soon as the money finished, he left her alone. He just dropped her. He went back to work wherever he worked. He left her. I mean, she was glad he was gone because he was very violent anyway. And she lived in fear. She was always very fearful that he might find her and come back to her. They had two kids, a daughter that was a bit older and a son, Arthur, that was a teenager, I think about 15. So she lived here in a basement flat with her son, Arthur. She was making money sewing, but Arthur suspected that, well, his mother had changed a bit her attitude. She was often drinking. She was often going out at night, wearing very fancy items of clothing and coming back with a gentleman. So he suspected that she had fallen into prostitution. He worked, little Robert, in a shirt factory, I think he did. And every night he'll bring money for his mother. So it is one of those, not this one, but it looks very similar to that building. Let me show you, I've got an image actually. That's what it looked like, but I'm pretty sure the actual one has been destroyed since, because I couldn't find it. I think it was right behind me. And what did I do? No, that's good. So yes, they lived in the basement. It was a very small flat. They had a bedroom that Kate used as a workshop, you know, where she'd be doing her sewing, and that was her bedroom. And the room behind was the kitchen. That was also Robert's bedroom. So that was a very small basement apartment. And one night, on a Friday night, Kate went out. She what's that? Bicycle seat or something. She came back. Well, we think she did. potentially with a gentleman, but little Robert doesn't know. He went to bed, he did not hear anything. And in the morning, he went into his mother's bedroom. She had been brutally attacked. She was on the floor. Her scissors, the scissors she used in her workshop for sewing, had been used to stab her several times. And the pair of scissors was still stuck in her chest. So horrible, horrible murder. Not something that could be self-inflicted. Someone must have done it. The boy explained that he suspected that she might have fallen into the sex trade. Of course, the police wanted to go and see Arthur, the ex-husband, that was still her husband. She was very, very fearful of him. And he didn't know where they lived, but she had already planned to move the next week. She had to keep moving to avoid him. The police went to find him. He had a very good alibi. It was not him. Although, did he really hate her that much? If so, could he have paid a mate of his to kill her for him? Who knows? The murderer was never found. It stayed a big murder mystery. It could have been a customer, like a Jack the Ripper type of killing, targeting the easy target sex workers. Or it could have been a suspect a little bit closer to home. What about the little Robert? How could he not hear anything? He was next door. Although none of the neighbors, they had families, 3 families living above, no one had heard anything. So, could he have been disappointed with his mom, finding out that she was selling her body when he was working hard and bringing her the money from his hard labor? Was he maybe ashamed of his mom? Did he confront her? And maybe did he lose it? Because if it was a killer, like a Jack the Ripper type of killer, wouldn't he come with his own knife or weapon? Why did they have to use the scissors that would have been on the table? So little Robert, although the police took him seriously, the police believed him, he could have been a decent suspect as well. Anyway, that's gonna be the end of the tour. Let me show you my face again. And let me know in the chat if you have any questions before we go. I'm gonna go down here so I'll have a bit more light. I don't like when we all dark and you don't see my face. Let me know if you have any questions for me. If not, thank you very much for coming today. It's always a pleasure to have you along. L'Empire des Lumières. Let me know if you have any questions. If not, thank you for coming. Thanks, Tish. Thanks, Ash. If any of you were completely new to me, I hope if you made it that far into the video, I hope you'll subscribe. If you want to make sure you don't miss out on the lives next time, you want to give me a subscribe and hit the notification thingy so you get a little email when I go live, because they're very easy to miss those lives. So the best way is to hit the notification bell. Thanks, Dawn. Thanks, everyone. It's always great to have you along. Thanks, Kurt. And if you want to see a bit more of me, I think it's in about a week, not this Sunday, but next Sunday, we're going to Bond Street. So we'll try the new Monopoly board. Thank you, Roberta. Thank you, Terry. So we've got, some of you were here when we threw the dice on the board. We ended up on Bond Street. So next tour is Bond Street, the Sunday after next. And then I should start doing some scheduling for October. Because of course we need to do and redo a few dark tours, because I finally have an excuse to tell you about ghosts and murders. I don't need an excuse. I'll do it anyway. But because it's October, it's gonna be time for dark tales anyway. Thanks, Laurie. Thanks everyone for joining, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Bye bye. And if any of you dropped me a little tip on PayPal or buy me a coffee, it's very, very much appreciated. It's thanks to your generosity that I can spend more time creating new works and all that. So thank you very much in advance. Bye. Have a good one.